We're ready to go.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, oh yay, oh yay, oh yay.
All right. You got brother Fletcher here, so we ought to be in good shape with all this oh yay and everything on here today.
I think Fletch was there when Eldridge said the ornery R. Wayne Smith presiding. Were you there, Fletch?
That's correct. I was. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, somebody pray for us.
Oh, Heavenly Father, as we come to you this morning, Father, I want to thank you for this time that we get to share with these men, Father. Father, please keep me humble as you blessing me with this blessing that is unbelievable. Keep me humble because I see there's things that are going on in the world with other people. Father, I'm praying for my brothers in the power. I'm praying for my African brothers, Father. Father, I'm praying for, I think Dr. G is on the move, and I will Pepper daughter, and everyone on this call, Father. I'm praying that we become learners, and that's humble ourselves, Father, and that's at this time open up our minds and our heart to hear your word. In the name of your Son Jesus, Amen.
Amen.
Man, thank you, Brother Will Credit. Well, we would just not be right to let you go ahead and share something. I feel like you busting and oozing out at the seams at something. So go ahead and let us know what it is.
Oh, it's just that God is blessing me financially. That's overwhelming. You know, there's money coming in from everywhere, and and I'm steady. The more I share, the more I give, the more God seems to say, "Okay, here go more, give more, give more, give more." So that's given to receive is really working in my life, you know, and that's the idea of giving, and it's not just finance because my family is being blessed. I don't have niece and nephew to be in accident, total on cars, and they've come out unharmed. And I had nieces and nephews, and I'm the oldest in the whole group. I'm the oldest in the whole family. And so now with this disciple making that I'm learning here, I'm able to share all this with them, and now we on a spiritual journey that is unbelievable. Because now we just giving, we learning to give and give and give. And I would be that's a miss not to tell y'all how much God is there. Every time I pick up the phone or go to the mailbox, if there's money in there, and I didn't get no miracle prayer cloth or nothing like that. I ain't doing nothing like that. I'm just doing the same old thing. I'm just giving to receive. And it really working. God, sometime like this morning, I received a financial package that if I would have been somewhere I could be alone, I could just ran down the street hollering because I didn't believe it, the money that came in my account. And so I'm truly being blessed. And it's just, I don't know how to, I'm trying to stay humble. And sometimes it's hard because the devil gets to telling you that you know more, but I just want to stay in a learning position. And I'm learning, and I'm just so up and about ready to learn this morning. So if I get out of line, please somebody tell me shut up, because I would go on and on. But I love y'all. Y'all are helping me out so much. I'm gonna leave it alone. Can I, Sue?
That's good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
No problem.
You're encouraging us. Thank you so much.
I know where I can go and get me a quick loan now. I got it.
No. It's not a loan. I just give it to you, brother.
All right then. All right. I think he got the principle down, ain't he? Being a conduit. Pass it through. Anybody else with a testimony? Anybody got a sharing testimony or anything? Anybody else can encourage us this morning?
Oh yeah, I just like to share that.
Go ahead, Bro John, tell us.
Okay, I just wanted to share, since this Friday morning group, so much has happened. We have started on Wednesday. We've got a Wednesday Bible study online that we started, and it was something else, but it shifted into disciple making.
Mm.
We were
Wow.
doing a series of lessons, but for about 2.5 months, we've been on one scripture, and Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. We've been there, and each week on Wednesday at 5 o'clock from 5 to 6, it grows more and more. And so now there are people on from Detroit and from Chicago and from California. And what's happening is people are telling each other, and then after our call, our study, I get phone calls that simply say, listen, I've never heard this before. And what they haven't heard before is what I hadn't heard before. Because I'm able to take that and to just connect that with Matthew 6 and 33, and it is just so rich.
Yes.
And we've only gotten to like the first 6 words. We are not close to the end of
Wow.
6 and 33.
Wow.
So it's just such a blessing. Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right. Brother Jeff, you was getting ready to say something.
I was just telling Brother Mac to take his off of mute. He was trying to say something, but he was on mute.
I think he's off now. Go ahead, Doc.
I had an encounter yesterday with a person on the internet. I had a bill from Apple that I disputed, and we had probably about 10 exchanges on trying to get it corrected. At the end of that session, I said, well, God bless you for being so kind, or something like that. From there, we got into a discussion about the Lord on the internet. And I got to share with him a little bit, but I, never encountered anyone that was so agreeable to. Once I said that, I figured that would be the end of the conversation. But after that, we had 4 or 5 minutes of talking about the Lord. And so that was an unexpected gift from the Lord yesterday for me.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Mack. Appreciate you, man. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. More than you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Let me hear about any of you men. Did you humble yourselves and let your wife tell you some spiritual truth this week? Any testimonies on that?
I was,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I got off the phone and I went right back to my wife that morning because she had said some things. She had said some things that I thought were, I could tell that she was growing deeper in the Lord than I was giving her credit for. And I went to her and told her what I had observed. And I just want to say thank you. I need to be reminded sometimes with a 2x4.
And somebody give these men who just joined us or who may not been here last time, give some context on what we're talking about right now when I say that. Somebody give some context on that.
I think the context, let's see, I wrote it down, I looked at it, but I don't have it in front of me. The context is that, hey, we need to listen to our wives too from a spiritual angle. Don't expect that we are the only one that can bring truth, but expect your wife to participate in that help of each of us. And I shared that with my wife, that we talked a little bit about that, like Jeff had said, and she reminded me it was time for me to have this meeting this morning. She thinks I'm in a good spot. We're talking about some good things.
All right. All right, then. That's good, man.
She
That's
actually,
good.
yeah, that is so true, man. It's just, you know, it's such a way to honor your wife, and that actually is true. To pay attention, listen, expect God to speak through them too to you, and use them to. They're the main part. They're the main part of us. So we certainly ought to hear some truth from them time to time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was really encouraging. I'm kind of hearing that from the standpoint of when we get under our wife and learn from them, then that strengthens them and encourages them to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the truth that we can learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Always be a pupil.
Mm-hmm.
So last weekend was Mother's Day, and it was my wife's birthday. So we loaded up the car. We head to Atlanta for a little, resort and relaxation. And sure enough, that Atlanta traffic caught us bad.
Mm.
we missed our spa time and so forth. And so we called them and see if they could rearrange and everything, and they couldn't. So if we missed the time of, we just miss it. And so we were debating, and of course I gotten a little frustrated. So traffic and everything, I'm like, doggone it, we missed the whole thing. And well, let's just call them and talk about it. She said, okay, yeah, okay. So we called, and they didn't have any extra spots. So we got to the hotel, and the wife said, why don't we go in and go to the desk and talk to them? I said, ain't no need in going in there. It's the Mother's Day weekend and everything. And I remembered our conversation about listening to the wife. And I remember what we said. Sure enough, man, I listened to her, and we went in there, and those people were able to fill us in, and we got our spa time and had a beautiful, beautiful Mother's Day and birthday this past weekend.
Woo-wee. That's good. Now, what if upon leaving the place, you had said, man, we missed our time, and everything was good except we missed our time, and somebody would have said with her standing there, well, all you had to do was ask us at the desk, man, you'd have been in trouble to next Mother's Day. You'd have been in trouble to next Mother's Day. You'd had to carry that trouble all year long. That's good, Doc.
I'm glad I was here listening that weekend, but I heard her, and it turned out real good. Thank you all.
Good, man. That's good.
But while I'm on that, I'll give another one. Judge is here, and I first heard of blocking and tackling and all the fundamentals. And I remember about a month ago on here, I was so frustrated. I'm like, man, I don't know where to get started with this stuff. I was like frustrated. I mean, and so I over the last month or so, blocking, tackling, and doing the fundamentals have become, I've just been able to incorporate it in my life, and the fulfillment and the peace. I mean, I talk to people on the internet about Jesus. I talk to the people at the spa about Jesus. I talk every chance I get. I genuinely ask somebody about the love of Jesus. And I'm tell you, it is becoming one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. So I just want to thank everybody on here, and I just can continue to pray that I'll hold fast to doing the work of God. I mean, I just don't want to talk about this stuff. I mean, I want to be authentic about it. So thank you all. And I love every one of you, and ain't nothing you can do about it. Not a thing.
Good. Yeah, your best teams and your best players, if you peel the onion back on all of them, it's going to be, they're the ones that do the best at the fundamentals and have the fundamentals down through repetition. And if you've played sports at any level, and the higher the level you go, you would think fundamentals would come into less play, but that's not true. The higher the level you go, the more critical the fundamentals become. And I mean, yeah, there's a level of athleticism that many of those athletes bring to the table. But you've seen it in college basketball. You could have a team that's just athletic as all get out, and they're dependent on their athleticism. But that little team that's working in fundamentals, a very high percentage of the time will beat that team with the high athleticism. And everybody, looks at Michael Jordan and how great a player he was. But if Michael Jordan had not went to North Carolina and Dean Smith, you might not have been hearing about him like he is now, because Dean Smith was a fundamental coaching guy. And the joke is, when you guard, you call that I'm holding him, right? Can you hold him? So if Judge was on my team and Dr. Fred was on another team, I said, Judge, you hold Dr. Fred. That means you guard him, you hold him down, clamp him down. So they say Dean Smith is the only one to be able to hold Michael Jordan down, but but it's a compliment, because it means Dean Smith made him work on his fundamentals. And when you just lap that over with that athleticism he got, you get Michael Jordan. So never, never, ever move away from your fundamentals. Keep building and building and building. And remember, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your training. So in any crisis situation, your default will be automatically what you trained in and what you've trained yourself in. So if anger is what your default is when you get in crisis, that's what you do. If fleeing is what you are repetitious in, when you get to crisis, that's what you do. If passivity is what you're repetitious in, when it goes to crisis, that's what you do. But if you're repetitious in the fundamentals of Christ, then when you get in crisis, that's what you automatically default to, and he'll get the glory, the true glory that he wants to see out of us through that. Does everybody feel that?
Can you say that quote one more time for us, please? Right, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall.
You fall to your training.
What?
You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your training.
I read one yesterday. I posted it. It says, champions don't become champions in the ring. They become champions in their daily routine. John Maxwell.
Yeah. And, I'm sure God had a role or a place when David rounded that slingshot up and swung it and hit Goliath in the forehead, in the head. But I would have to believe also David had a lot of practice out in that field as a shepherd boy with that slingshot too. You see, and knew where to plant that thing on that big head on Goliath up in there. Only took him one shot.
KEUSI, I shared your testimony with someone. He wanted to know what I was doing on Friday morning. I shared his testimony, your testimony. He said, I need to hear that guy.
It's good.
Amen.
Now,
Appreciate it. Amen.
Coop, I have a testimony and a thanks. I studied under KEUSI from 2010 to 2015, and found is the greatest fundamental was don't give what you haven't studied. And right now I'm overwhelmed with Bible verses I can't get out of my mind and my heart, and it's beyond what KEUSI gave me because he trained me. And all I can say is be encouraged to go beyond what we're just studying here, but continue to read over the scriptures and study them the way we're being taught, to train them. That way we can listen for the voice of the Lord to bring us before itself, to hear what it's trying to say to us. And last night, right now I've got a 10 and 11-year-old daughters, and I quit my job this week, and my wife and me have been married 17 years, and it was a dead end job. But anyway, I ran into KEUSI yesterday on the phone, and he told me you were studying Luke 6:40, and we went over it. I went over it with my wife and children last night, and my oldest daughter was stuck on, well, Dad, nobody's perfect. We're not going to ever be perfect. And my youngest daughter said, we can be like the master. So then we went into Philippians 2:5 through 14 and Philippians chapter 3:12 and 13. And back to what KEUSI told us of Philippians 4:9, which is, watch and listen, to hear, to receive. And so I just wanted to thank you guys for what you do, and stay with it, and keep writing down the notes. And one day he's just going to fill you with itself to walk in and be encouraged by, that you'll have it beyond what men think and what you even think. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Paul, appreciate you. Appreciate you being here this morning, man.
Yes, sir.
He used that word perfect, and remember, we went over that one time, right? A lot of people start the conversation off, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm not perfect. Well, we in a study found out that when many times the Bible uses perfect, the word is not perfection, it's impartiality. Be perfect as my Lord or my Father is perfect. In other words, be impartial. And so it has the concept of impartiality. Is that right, Keus? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we don't know the meaning of that word, and we spouting it to someone who does know, and you say, I'm not perfect, what are you saying?
I'm not impartial.
Huh?
I'm not impartial.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So
Hey, can you amplify what that means? Impartial. Take that down.
yeah, well, God shows no impartiality to people, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if well, no, God doesn't show partiality, right? That'd be
Right.
better. Yeah. Yeah. He's impartial. So if I say I'm not perfect, then that means I'm showing partiality.
Right.
So with the
But if I'm,
sorry,
oh, you go.
would the concept mean being unbiased, or equal or fair or just?
Correct. And if I'm gonna be a Great Commission Christian, then I must be impartial, right?
Right.
And then
Sure.
what's the scripture that when and God showed Peter that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 So
I see where. Yeah.
So that's your concept behind that word perfect.
2 Peter 1:20 says, there is no private interpretation of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then what does he say to Peter when he had his experience in Acts chapter 10?
Just don't call unclean without make clean.
Yeah, keep on rolling.
I got it right here.
Come on.
It says, and the voice came to him again a second time. What God has made clean, do at once to heaven. Now, while Peter was inwardly perplexed as to what the vision that he had seen might mean, behold, the men who were sent by Cornelius, having made inquiry for Simon's house, stood at the gate and called out to ask whether Simon, who was called Peter, was lodging there. And while Peter was pondering the vision, the Spirit said to him, behold, 3 men are looking for you. Rise, go down, and he accompanied them without hesitation to the men and said, I'm the one. And they said to Cornelius, the centurion, an upright and God-fearing man who is well spoken by the whole Jewish nation, was directed by a holy angel to send for you to come to his house and hear what you have to say.
Okay. So would Peter had been one of partiality before this experience?
Yes.
Yeah. But God was making him and getting him into the lane like he was, to let him know that he has no impartiality. And here the Gentiles is opening the door for them right there too, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So just a little bit on that. And KEUSI, you can add anything if you want to that.
Good. Good.
Otherwise, we'll take this time and turn it over to KEUSI. So come on, KEUSI.
All right. Okay. Well, good morning again. Always encouraged by this time and by you men. So appreciate you. A lot of you guys have been reaching out throughout the week. As always encouraged, so I want to say, Soup, Village Wayne, I appreciate you guys invite me in to share and be a part of this group. Great group of men. World changers, game changers, change agents. All right. And so let's see. Let's keep circling through. We started to review last week. We got through 1. We were in 2. We were getting ready to shift over to point number 3. All right. So let me see. Just briefly, somebody just recap 1, and then somebody else recap 2, and then we want to settle in on recapping 3. I think we've been finding some good discovery. But hey, Soup, I was thinking, I don't know, we've been circling the wagon on this. I would love to know who feels comfortable, because it's been about 3 to 4 months now. Who feels comfortable of teaching each one of these points? Like, we may have a guy teach point number 1, reteach point number 1, another guy reteach point number 2, and so forth. We've been circling the wagon. Almost be ashamed not to close out when we close this study out to do that. So
yeah.
So let's keep that in mind, man. But somebody review briefly point number 1. Somebody quote our text. Let's start off right there. Anybody want to quote the text?
Disciple is not above.
A pupil. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
A pupil is not above his teacher, but everyone, after being fully trained, will be like his teacher. Luke 6:40, New American Standard. And that's what we learned last week, is we better get it right, or Soup will let us know that it's not right.
The key to that is us letting each other know. That's
right. That's right.
That's the accountability. Appreciate it, Brother Jeff. Anybody else? Drew, you was getting ready to do it. Let's roll.
A disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone, when he is fully trained will be like his teacher. ESV.
Yeah,
Luke
yeah.
6:40.
Oh, yeah. Good. All right, anybody want to do us a brief review of point number 1?
Sure.
Point number. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
The definition of pupil is a student, a pupil, a learner, an adherent, an apprentice, and an understudy or a disciple. We want to become what the concordance says, and we don't read to know, but we read to become. Last week, KEUSI, I think you or somebody made a special point that Jesus was Word become flesh. We are flesh becoming Word. A pupil is a special type of learner. Pupil wants to do whatever it takes to learn. There are 4 jobs of the pupil, or 4 jobs of a disciple. Number 1 is to memorize the words exactly. Number 2, imitate or follow the traditions of the teacher exactly. 3, imitate the teacher exactly. And 4, raise up many disciples exactly like his teacher. Several scripture references: Joshua 1:8, Deuteronomy 6:7-9, Philippians 4 verse 9, 1 Corinthians 15 verse 3, and Matthew 5:21-26.
Good. That's good. Thanks, Brother Drew. Excellent. Any comments on that point number 1 before we move to point number 2?
Well, we are supposed to become that special kind of student, a kind that not just learning something and then like going out and memorizing it and doing it. Like Sue brought up the example about a college student. They go to school and they learn just to pass the grade, and they sell their books after that. So we're supposed to be memorizing this and doing it, not just learning it for sake of learning's sake, but to memorize it and then go out and do it.
Amen. Yeah.
I was going to ask what the scripture references were again.
Sure. Joshua 1:8, Deuteronomy 6:7-9, Philippians 4:9, 1 Corinthians 15 verse 3, and Matthew 5 verse 21-26.
Okay, thank you.
I thought we had 1 Corinthians 11:2. I don't remember 1 Corinthians 15.
No.
Yeah.
What's it?
You say 11:3?
No, 11:2.
Yeah, it was
11:1.
11:1.
Yeah, 11:1.
Well, Ross brought up about 11:2 last time.
Yeah, we discussed it. So, I wouldn't say not. Look at 11 through 11:1-3. But
Okay.
the key or the emphasis and all of that is really looking at those verses from the perspective of how the Bible is describing that learner at that moment. So that's kind of what we're observing, is how is God describing a learner. Like, I'll give an example, like Philippians, and the things that you have learned, received, and heard and seen in me, practice these things. So those are the examples of a process that a learner would go through, and the end result is that they receive it. Receiving, that's a lesson in itself. But it's like you grabbed hold to something and you drew it unto yourself, and so that's kind of like taking possession of it, or that's kind of that philosophy of becoming what we learn. You know, at the point I received it, I became what I was taught. But the process or the progression to get there was you had to learn it, you had to hear it, you had to see it, you had to practice it. And you repeat that process until it becomes simultaneous. You know, then you begin to do all those in one, you know, after you adopt it. And this is the beautiful part about that verse. We talked about this. We always pray for God's presence. God be with me. God, I need to feel your presence. Moses prayed, you know, wanted to feel God's presence. But God says in this verse, if you do those 5 things, the peace of God will always be with you, or the God of peace will be with you. His presence and his peace and himself will always be with you. So really, it boils down to what we always talk about, simple obedience. You know, simple obedience. That's the key to this special learning. So yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh yes.
I think when I was reviewing it last week, I don't remember if I may have added the other 1 Corinthians 11 verse, because verse 1 talks about imitation, and verse 2 talks about maintaining the traditions as they have been delivered. So I saw one of those verses connected to the idea of imitating the master, and the other one in learning the traditions of the master. So I may have added that in because I taught it to some guys a couple of weeks back, and I don't remember if that's how we talked about it in here. But that's why those 2 verses were why I mentioned it last week.
Yeah, we were talking about the 4 jobs of a disciple when you mentioned that verse. Anybody want to tell us what job number 1 is of a disciple?
Memorize
special learner.
Memorize the words of the teacher exactly.
All right. Job number 2.
Does whatever it takes to be like his teacher.
All right. How do we define that? And job number 2, and we did the 4 jobs of a disciple. Job number 1 was memorize the words of the teacher exactly. What did we say about job number 2 again?
Go along with it.
Follow the traditions of the teacher exactly.
Yeah.
Learn the traditions
of his rabbi.
Yeah, learn the traditions of his rabbi or the teacher. Yeah. And in those traditions, learning the traditions of a rabbi says so much more than we actually know. We hadn't really spent a lot of time. We hadn't spent a lot of time, but learning the traditions of an individual, you know, is saying a lot. So yeah, you know, you learn more than we think about. What do we say about job number 3? And that's where we use that verse. I'm sorry. That's where we use 11 and 2 at, Ross. When we talk about the traditions, 11 and 2 would kind of incorporate there.
Imitate him.
Yeah.
Job number 3.
Imitate his rabbi.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He also referenced scripture, 1 Corinthians 4, 16 and 17.
Yeah.
I had my notes.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful example. It's hard to pass it up and not even mention it. Somebody turn there and read that one. And that's a greatest outcome example of the results of imitation. When we look at 4, 16 and 17, you know,
I got you.
This is how it's supposed to look as a result or the accomplished work from imitating.
I urge you then, be imitators of me. That is why I sent you, Timothy, my beloved and faithful child in the Lord, to remind you of my ways in Christ as I teach them everywhere in every church.
Yeah.
That's the ESV.
Yeah. So if you notice, you know, Soup lives this out, you know, and I'm proud to say, and I can boast and brag to say, because of the discipline, the consistency, true faithfulness, Soup is able to model this, you know, with me. That's how I'm here with you guys. If you really think about it, I wouldn't be here if he hadn't lived that out, you know. And so the end result is, you know, those who are imitating you long to see someone else and you're not able to come, or you're able to come, and on your behalf, you send that other one who has been that special type of learner, who's understood the process and has been produced into that special product, you know. And that's the goal. Yeah, that's the goal.
KEUSI, and also I think we did Philippians 4:9.
Yeah, we talked about that a little while ago. That's that
okay.
Things you have received, learned, heard, seen in me and practice. So yeah.
Hey, this concept right here is one we're circling real heavy right now up here where I am. George is up here with me, and Dr. Jones, Dedrick AG, the guy you talked to. I mean, Dr. Jones, Derek AG, he's on another call. Maybe he talked to, he's there in Birmingham. Okay, he's up here. But at the first of this camp, KA, about the first 4 days of us coming in, we bring in a bunch of young men who kind of like are the top guys in the camp, and they able to come a few days earlier than everybody else. It's called Uncle's Week. And it's just a time of getting the camp clean, a good camaraderie among young men. And so I was going to do a men's retreat in the same time as that this year, but that didn't work because Corona and stuff. But I did invite a few other men up, and I've got some of my disciples here, and they're winding up doing a lot of the teaching. But would love for some of you men to think about next year coming up with Judge during this time and just rubbing shoulders with some of these young men. A lot of them didn't have a male or father figure at home. And let me see, the young man on here, what's his name? Ron. Ronald probably can testify, and a lot of these young men admitted it yesterday, that when they get in college, they don't have many older men in their life, because college life is kind of a peer-driven life, right? You're just around a bunch of your peers and hanging out with a bunch of peers and that kind of thing, but not a lot of older men for them to turn to and be a part of their life. And so a lot of these young men graduate from college with gaps in their life. And then if they go into a marriage in a couple of 2 or 3 years after college, they take those gaps into that marriage and a lot of times into late adulthood. So next year, I want to ask some of you men to be praying about 3-4 days, save that time, come up here, help work alongside these young men, and just be here to be with them. So last night, after we finished our session and got a new CEO, Randy Odom, he's a disciple of mine. And so what we do in the morning after breakfast for 3 hours, we train in the word. And they go work for 5 hours. And then we come back after dinner at night and we have 2 hours of debrief. So that's 5 hours a day we're getting with these young men. And we got some young ladies. My wife and some of her disciples are doing some young ladies up here. But I think next year it's going to be 3 times what we got this year. And so would love for you men to pray about getting on a van, some of y'all, and come on up here and help with this. Judge, share a little bit about what you experienced and what you've seen, and Judge is dropping some wisdom on some guys up in here last night and stuff, and I really appreciate him coming up and being a part of it, and he got a chance to dialogue with Randy and them a lot last night. So Judge, what do you think? You're muted.
it's been a great experience to be up here. You know, y'all have seen the teaching, a lot of it, and you know how impactful that is. But then to be up here with the people that Soup has discipled, 3 or 4 of them, and then these younger kids, these college kids, who Soup, these will be, as I understand it, counselors or leaders of counselors. Am I correct in saying?
Correct.
And, you know, they're just up there sponging it in. They just absolutely sponging it in, just like we all have over this period of time. At my table yesterday were 2 guys from Tulsa. They were older guys, and they had come up there together. But some of this stuff they'd never heard, and you know, they were just really trying to soak it in and enthusiastic about what they had heard. They were probably, one of them was probably in his probably early 70s, I'd say, probably. And the other one was, and they worked together in Tulsa in a prison ministry. But boy, they really had not heard this kind of thing about the disciple making aspect. So it's been great. Food's good, scenery's good, and so it's been a wonderful time. It's spent time with Soup. It's spent time with his other guys, and I got to know Randy a little bit better yesterday. So it's been great. I'm just very appreciative for the opportunity, Soup, to be up here. And it's great.
And
so thank you.
Thank you. This pastor, he's up here. You'll meet him today, and he brought some leadership from his church, and his church has a school. So they brought the leadership of the school, just about made it mandatory. So about 20 of them will be here today for primarily to come for the teaching, and they'll work alongside these young men up here at camp during the work time, but primarily come to get the disciple teaching, because he wants the school to be undergirded in disciple making. And the way to do that, his leadership and his teachers and instructors, and we're talking about key people in the school up here to get disciple training.
Amen. So let me say one other thing too there, Sue. The strategy, I mean, I'm just getting a picture now, but the strategy of KAA is off the charts, because the desire is world impact. And what you got is these campers coming in here that will have a great week. That mostly, as I understand it, inner city urban youth who haven't had this kind of privilege. Great for them. But see, what Soup and them are doing now, they're building into the counselors. They are discipling the counselors. And then when the Kaleos come in here who bring the kids up, they'll be poured into those guys. So it's not just a time of having fun for the campers and for them coming to faith and being encouraged that way. There's disciple making all along the way. And a lot of those counselors will end up coming and spending time in Memphis with Soup and become disciples of his. Am I correct in saying that, Soup? That's the vision, man.
Yes, sir. And Rod, I don't know what you're doing this summer, but I need me another person working for me. Dr. Gio. No, yeah, that's right, Dr. Gio. I get it right that time. Did I get it right?
You did it.
All right. Dr. Gio's kid, Aaron, he'll be working for me the latter part of the summer. So we'll get to walk together for about a month and a half up close. And my job when summer starts is to equip and train and refresh and just love on the leaders who bring kids up here. And these leaders come from every city just about across the U.S. I have, when we're running full blast, I have about 130 leaders for 9 sessions. In other words, 130 times 9 leaders coming in here from the cities that we get to train and equip, and they go back. So every week I have about 130 leaders when we're running full blast that we train and equip. And then when we're running full blast, we'll have about, I don't know, anywhere from close to 500 counselors and staff that we get to pour into. For 3 months, we get to do that and then release them back into the cities around the globe. So what a place just to post up and do equipping. KEUSI comes up, and it would be here now if the schedule would have allowed. And so I bring all these equippers up. Pookie's up here, Damon Remy Gallo's up here right now training, Corky, Willie Baldwin, all of them up here right now helping with the equipping process. And then Linda's got some of her disciples. So y'all pray about that. Well, I don't know if it needs much prayer. Brother Fred, how do we pray?
We don't pray if we should go. We pray if we should stay.
That's right. We don't pray if we should go. Need to be praying if you ought to stay at home. Okay. So thank you, Judge. Sorry about Caves.
No, man, it's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. It really helps us put it in perspective to properly put it into practice. So this is it. You know, this is what we train for. So yeah, amazing time at Kids Across America. Amazing always. So yeah.
And some of these young men are looking for somewhere to go right after college, somewhere they can attach themselves to a man and walk with him for those 9 months that they're out of college, and they want to come back in the summer and work at KA, but they're looking for somewhere to go in the winter and just watch manhood walk itself out.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Okay. All right. Well, good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. So somebody review point number 2 for.
Then we have one-on-one.
I'll say that again. I think your internet just a little off, Tim.
I thought we only did the first 3 on number 1.
Oh yeah. You talking about on 4 jobs. That's right. We're on the 4 jobs. So what was the 4th job of a disciple?
Raise,
Yeah, go ahead.
to raise up disciples.
Yeah.
Raise up any disciples.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about 4 jobs, you know, there was this study that we went through that kind of looked at the historical content or the foundation, the Jewish foundation of disciple making. And so this is not all of the responsibilities. This is not all the functions of a disciple, but these were 4 main important jobs that stands out when you look at the foundation of a disciple's responsibility. So memorizing the words of his teacher or rabbi exactly, learning the traditions of his teacher or rabbi, imitating his teacher or rabbi, that says a whole lot in itself. And then the end result is for him to in turn do everything he just learned from his rabbi by raising up many disciples, which is the greatest honor of a rabbi. You know, a lot of times we mentor people, especially in our Western culture. You know, we even train them and teach them a little bit. But the greatest thing we can ever do, and Soup models this tremendously, especially, you know, I could talk about what I see him do with other people, but I can speak from not just a concept, but life example of what he does with me. and I'm pretty sure the rest of his men, disciples can do the same. So you want to hear it from them. But the greatest thing, the greatest honor a disciple can bring to a rabbi is for him to in turn raise up other disciples because of his investment in learning process. And so raising up many disciples is the outcome. It's the expectation. You know, we should expect nothing less, and we should plan on nothing less. You know, you begin with that in mind, and that's what you want to see. And that's what we got to strive to become and to make it happen. But it starts with this simple process of being. You guys remember me saying that. Being and building is the simplest equation in disciple making. But the problem is we don't focus enough on being the correct type, the correct type, or the special learner. So we got to be, and building is a byproduct of being the learner. It's gonna happen, you know. It's gonna happen. But we got to learn the technique. So we don't want to walk away thinking we mastered something when we only had a concept, you know. And I learned that the hard way for myself, you know. So yeah.
A bit of studying with you for so long. We studied the parable of the talents for 5 years, but the next parable after that is the one where verse 31 through 40 of Matthew chapter 25, where it talks about the lame and the sick and the jailed and the poor. And at the end in verse 40, it says, when do we do this stuff for you, Lord? And he said, to the ones you did it for, you did it unto me. And I see now as studying the talents, the affliction that he gave Paul of Acts 9, 15 and 16, when he says, I'm going to show you what you're going to have to suffer for me. As we start getting in this word and following like you say, and like we're supposed to do as the word says to do it, that we're doing, I see the affliction arise, and not the knowledge that we hold, but the wisdom and power of God to be given the answers that men need before them. But our problem that I see, my problem is that I need a listening ear, because what we're learning, what we're studying, what it is so vital, like you taught. This word we're working for is has such vitality that the honor and the humility that we have to hold on to it is so great that we're gonna face these afflictions and be ready for them, and like Soup said, fall back to your training, right? The humility to stay before the truth to be perfected. That's just my idea as you're talking.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, KEUSI, Jensen brought out something very powerful yesterday. In that verse we talked about, and how we 1 Corinthians 4:16, how he says, I'll send Timothy, and I always ask the question, where's your Timothy? Where's your Timothy? And Jensen brought out a good point. And here's why: because when he was at the table in discussion, young men were asking, saying, I got to find a Timothy. I got to find a Timothy. Well, but they forget about getting a Paul. In other words, they forget about being a disciple before trying to make a disciple. And that process always breaks down. Yeah, always breaks down. And some of you guys on here, you're gonna have to go to I don't know where you have to go. You so old already, it's gonna be hard for you to find somebody older than you. So y'all gonna have to have a peer group and use some resources as y'all's deal, and just stay in the fray of things like this. But yeah, and but But being in the process yourself, if you're not in the process somewhere yourself, it's gonna break down when you searching, when you try to start with a Timothy before you're being yourself.
Yeah. Like I can't tell you, see, yeah, I ain't even gonna bring that up, but I can't tell you how, you know, the guys I've invested in. Well, I was gonna say, Soup, I just keep hearing somebody say you kicked them out the nest, and I know that ain't how it worked. And I was trying to pull that person to the side and say, hey, explain that context to me, because I ain't familiar with that. And I was gonna end peacefully, like, hey, you know, that may be something you want to revisit and not mention that in public anymore. But anyway, because it ain't no kicking out the nest. You know, if you get kicked out the nest, you jumped out and committed suicide. You know, so, but that key piece of those who were trailing me, seeing me sit under suit, when they pulled me to the side, they said that's the greatest part of this learning process. I've got a chance to actually see our relationship, and we talking about shoot, a little more than 10 years now. I don't know, maybe 11 or 12, and so I'm always still there learning, you know, and they get to see that, you know, but I've never you know, lost sight of me being Timothy, having a Paul and suit, you know. So I wanted to make sure I got it. And I let God figure out the rest. You know, hey, he'll figure out who my Timothys are. You know, I gotta be a Timothy to suit. So yeah. But yeah, we can lose sight of it. All right. We got our 4 jobs. Now let's move back to our text, Luke 6:40 text, to point number 3. What's point number 3, somebody? We wanna circle the wagon on this one. Let's dig it out. I'm sorry. Point number 2. Let's just briefly go through point number 2, but we want to try to dig into point number 3 today. Somebody give us a brief overview of point number 2.
Position.
Oh yeah. What do we talk about on point number 2 that stood out? Probably some key insights and highlights for point number 2.
Yeah, the position.
You can never be over someone unless you're under someone. You can never truly be over the one who you are who's under you until you can truly get under the one who is over you.
And to be honest, that's that point Benson brought out, and also what Suk and I were just talking about. So, and what do we call that? Somebody said, what do we call that concept or practice? You know, how do we label that?
Position and posture.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Yeah, so our posture and position is always vital how well we learn. Wrong posture, incorrect position hinders or eliminates our ability to learn. So we call it sitting at the workbench. You know, you can't sit at the workbench standing up. So it's about the right posture when you're at your workbench to be able to learn. You go sit at the feet of Jesus, you know. And so it's all about, you know, humility, humbleness, openness, which is what intunes our ears, our thoughts, you know, our ability, our perception, you know, to receive. So yeah.
I remember
anything. Go ahead.
I remember you saying without the proper process and procedure, you will never get the right product.
Yeah. And I think, Dr. Fred, we used that one on point number 5.
I got ahead of the game.
No problem. No problem.
Casey, you did make
Jeff.
it.
Go
You
ahead.
also,
Andrew.
Just real quick, you made a great point about a double negative there. Never, ever, 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 ever.
Yeah. Once again, y'all see how I flow with Soup. I'm always following his lead, and he don't have a problem slingshotting me to the front when it's time. And immediately, I don't have a problem stepping back to give him room. We know how to do that without being offended, feeling like, hey, no, we just flow. We go back and forth, and it's harmony, and we learn how to do that. I think we're perfecting that. Or maybe even mastering it. So yeah, yeah, great point. If I had to shout you out, man, I see you keeping up. You keeping us in line. Kind of like a moderator with these points. I see. Don't think I don't notice. Yeah.
Well, I've rewritten them 4 times. I should get it down pretty soon.
All right now. All right. Sound like you volunteered to be our first teacher, but John, you had a comment.
yeah. Also, we said that you can never get people to do what you haven't done.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Under that point, he's not above.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said not above hooper and not hoopo.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Let's have one more time, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, KEUSI.
No, you got it. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. When you hooper, you above. Hoopo is below. Beneath. So if you take a posture of hooper, you're not taking the posture of a learner. Posture of a learner is hoopo. It gets down to learn.
It seems as though the aroma of a learner attracts a follower.
Well, so you're imitating, right? How can you imitate if you don't see them learn? So greatest examples is I got a chance to watch Soup and Herd. I was up close and personal, and I've never been in a setting or a context where I hadn't noticed or seen or got a chance to witness Soup taking notes. So I learned that, and I never go without taking notes, no matter who's teaching, so yeah.
Along that said that the posture involves never having arrived. You're always in a position to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And could that be one reason that I'm gonna say it this way, but y'all can help me frame this up. Could that be one reason why people or our wives have a hard time learning from us is because we take the posture of one who already knows everything and not the posture of a co-learner with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just think of yourself. You've been around people who think they know it all, know everything, and it makes you not really want to talk to them or share with them about some discoveries you might have made. Even though that person may know it, they should act excited like you just taught them something. But if we take the posture of I know it all, then I'm gonna be sitting there going, well, why do I need to talk about you within the scriptures, anything I learned, rather than a co-learner that, man, we're learning together. You share some stuff with me, I share with you, and we're co-learning together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
Will Credit always makes mention, man, I see you taking notes with KEUSI because we're co-learning. I probably learned more from him than he learns from me. We're co-learning together. And I'll call him, hey, KEUSI, what you got on this?
Yeah, man. And I was gonna comment on this earlier, is the greatest outcome for a rabbi or a teacher in the way they invest in the disciple to the point that that disciple can become greater than they ever were. See, that's a different context in our culture. You know, we don't want to see the person learning from us better than us. But that's how Soup's treated me. That's how he's made me feel. He's created an atmosphere for that to happen. And that's how the disciples attract themselves to you, will become the greatest person they can be if you posture yourself for that to happen when you're in this process. He's done a great job of that with me.
Excuse me, KEUSI. So in your opinion, why is that so in the culture? Like you mentioned, like in our culture, why is that so a hindrance for trainers or people who disciple others to make them better? Why is that such a hindrance? What's a stumbling block?
Ask that one more time, Cornelius.
Oh. Okay, yeah, you mentioned that in our culture, just in the culture, you know, it's hard for people who can disciple somebody to be better than them. Why is, in your opinion, why is that such a hindrance for people who disciple others to want to make them better?
Okay.
Or greater than them?
All right, so you jump in. That's
the answer. It's partiality. The answer is partiality.
Ask that question again.
Question is, okay, KEUSI mentioned that it's hard for disciples that want the people who follow them to be greater than them. I'm saying, why is that hard for people with a true discipleship to do? What's the hindrance, or what's the stumbling block?
Security. You mean like why is it hard for a discipler to see a disciple running as hard and wanting a disciple to be greater than they are?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think security, and also, I think that's one main reason: security, and not understanding that. Okay, somebody read 1 Corinthians 3:8. Let's see if this can answer.
Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one.
That's not it. And bro, Paul, you might need to hoop a little bit more. You're new to this group, and we've got some context that you hadn't realized yet. Okay. So 1 Corinthians 3:8.
Yeah, he who plants and he who waters are one, but each will receive his own reward according to his own labor.
Okay, my bad. 1 Thessalonians 3:8.
And now yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Go ahead. No, you got it, Danny.
For now we really live if you stand firm in the Lord. Is that 1 Corinthians 3:8? I think that's what you read. Yeah.
And that other verse would work for us when Paul is talking about, you know, some people doing their favorite preacher thing, right? And You know, I like Paul, I like Apollos, and they said, neither one of us is the deal here. God is the one that brings the increase, right? And, you know, that's Corinthian carnality we even have in our own churches and our own life. Who's our favorite preachers and stuff like that. Sometimes the one that ain't the favorite is the one you may need the most, right? All right. Now, but 1 Thessalonians 3:8, read it again, please.
For now we really live if you stand firm in the Lord.
All right. So Paul is saying he can only really live, and there's a word of major emphasis there. What y'all think it is?
You.
That's right. Thank you. If you stand firm in the Lord. So if I'm going to live on, then who got to stand firm in the Lord?
Your disciple.
You're a disciple. That's right. You're a disciple. You're a disciple. Now, don't we, with our own kids, try to make the necessary investments in their life, set them on a track or trajectory to where we always say, I want you to have it better than me. I want you to be better than me. I want you to, and don't we try to set them on that trajectory, y'all?
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, the same thing with a disciple. Okay. For you to live on, then your disciple has to stand firm and has to have all the necessary tools and equipping and time and whatever needs to be invested in them, because you're out of here in what, at least 100 years. Some of y'all on here might maybe live beyond that the way you're going. And my daddy almost did. And so, you want to still be living 2,000 years from now if Christ hadn't come yet. So that's definitely a greater goal than the 100 years we'll get here on earth ourselves, right?
Right.
Right.
To still be living 2,000 years from now. And as Dr. Anon, we'll have him come on, but that's all wrapped up in that word, behold, in the commission. I will be with you always, even to the end of the age. In other words, he wants to live on through you to the end of the age. And you do that through your disciple. So why in the world would you not build that disciple up and encourage that disciple far beyond your own potential, right?
Yes,
Did that
correct.
help? Did that help with that, Cornelius?
That was good. That was great. Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, good question. Good question, Cornelius. All right. Anything else on point number 2? All right. Let's circle the wagon on point number 3. All right. Somebody get us started. Now, what did we already learn about point number 3?
We learned that it's focused on the part of the verse that says his teacher, which is the prototype. The prototype is the main change agent. So without the teacher, nothing can happen. And we kind of connects back to the verse 39 about the blind leading the blind, the idea that seeing is becoming. The disciple has to have his eyes on the teacher in order to become like his teacher. And the principle is this, that I won't ever try to be it unless I see it lived out before my eyes. And we talked about the kind of the, in their day, the idea of following is to follow to become exactly like. It wasn't just more simple than that. It was to follow to become exactly like.
Okay.
And this is where I added in 1 Corinthians 11:1. Did you talk about 1 Corinthians 11:1 about be imitators of me as I am of Christ?
Yeah.
And that the comma in this verse here is a pause where we can contemplate the teacher.
So let's think
And
about that.
the teacher has two things that he does. He teaches and he interprets.
Yes. Yes.
To teach the commands of God, handing them down, and to interpret the commands of God.
We said it like this: a teacher has two main jobs or two main functions. So a teacher has two main jobs, and this is now just to be clear, this is not us assuming, this is not us guessing, this is not us trying to come up with our own ideas. This is historical and cultural content and practice. This is how they did it in Jesus's culture. This is what they understood in their culture from a perspective of first century and beyond, rabbi-talmid relationship. And from the observation, there were two main functions. Again, these aren't the only responsibilities Rabbi had. These were the two main ones or main functions that stood out. And we said he had two main jobs: to teach or to teach the commands of God. But to give us a better understanding, we said to teach the commands of God in a way that you can see how they're lived out in everyday life. So it wasn't just to teach the commands of God, but he taught it in such a way you can understand and see how it was lived out in everyday life. And we call that halakha. Anybody remember what halakha means?
It means
walking out the text. But is that right? Walking out the text? Walking out, basically living what you're learning.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good description. That's one way we describe it. Yes, Danny, great. Anybody want to add to that?
They knew they would become the word of God. They knew they would become the word of God.
Okay, that's a description of the end result of the halakha. Is becoming the word of God means I'm walking it out in everyday life. Anybody else want to add to that?
Well, it would be the way that he interprets the text, because that's going to determine how he walks it out. So he interprets, it's the halakha is the way in which he interprets and walks out the text. In other words, lives it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in those two jobs, a rabbi teaches the commands of God, but he interprets the commands of God as well. So those are the two jobs: to teach the commands of God in a way that's walked out in everyday life, and to interpret the commands of God. Matter of fact, when we look at the three levels of schools or schooling in Jewish culture, Bet Sefer was, the first one, from anywhere from 4 to 6 years old to the age of 10 or 12. They were in Bet Sefer. Bet Talmud. Bet Sefer means book or house of the book. Bet Talmud, house of the learner or house of learning. All right. And so, house of the student, but Bet Talmud from the age of 12, maybe to 14 or 15 or so, You know, those were those individuals that wanted to go deeper in their studies beyond memorization, you know. But Bet Midrash was where your higher learners, your serious learners, were going, and these were exceptional students, you know. But in Bet Midrash, the main concept, Midrash literally means it's an interpretive message or method. So they will learn how to interpret the text in Bet Midrash. You know, it was where your serious students were being invited into disciple-making relationships or had potential to be invited in disciple-making relationships. But during Bet Midrash literally means to simultaneously draw out the meaning of the text and the meaning of the words. So you would look at the meaning of the text and the meaning of the words and draw it out for interpretation. And eventually, see, everything hangs or hinges on the interpretation. The old saying is there's many applications, but there's one interpretation. So if you get the interpretation wrong, you just led others astray. We got to get that. So the reality of it is you got to be careful before you present an interpretation, because if you're inaccurate, you've led others astray spiritually. And it may be better for you not to be a born-again believer than it is for those who don't even know God at that moment. So we always want to be careful about our interpretations and what people usually say when they interpret, God said this. So you better be careful, because God said He's gonna hold you accountable for putting words in His mouth, and that ain't what I want to be held accountable for. So there's serious responsibility in learning how to interpret, but there was a systematic way. See, we're learning a systematic way. And a lot of times we see people skip this system. There's a lot involved before you draw out an interpretation. There's a lot of work involved before you draw out an interpretation. So rabbi had a heavy responsibility. You know, we may not have spent a lot of time on this, which is why I said we probably should circle the wagon. But a rabbi had a huge responsibility. Interpreting God's commands, whoa. You know, that's a big responsibility. And so halakha, you take the legal judgments, you know, you define the Torah, and then you teach how it's practically walked out. See, we miss Jesus giving us holocaust because we didn't understand the concept. So we read it, but we miss it. And all rabbis mostly ended their teaching with a holocaust. That was the whole goal for me interpreting this text, is now I want to apply it where you can walk it out in everyday life. Anything you want to add on that, Sue? All right. Okay.
You think it's accurate to say that every time Paul, like in Ephesians 4:1 and Colossians 2, when he uses the word walk, he's depending on that tradition, that teaching. He's given you the gospel in the first part, and now he's calling you to walk the halakha. He's going into application, and it's that rabbinic method of teaching the halakha that comes from the interpretation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you did an excellent teaching and study on this word walk. Before, I don't know if you got a context or definition.
Yeah, I can't remember right now.
Okay. But you walking down that path, Ross, because you know when they say walk, yeah, they like when it says Enoch walk with God, you know, it's a whole nother meaning than just walking with God. It's about intimate learning and knowledge and relationship, and it also references a similitude of a relationship with a talmid and a disciple, you know. So it means that, you know, if I walk with God, I'm his student, but also I'm imitating him, I'm learning from him. There's intimacy going on, and I'm understanding what he's wanting. I'm understanding what he's saying. I'm understanding what he's teaching. But walking is huge, you know.
Got another question. Okay, as a rabbi, or the person who disciples someone, how do you handle fatigue? As far as you get tired of you know, as far as you get tired of teaching, a burnout. But what I'm asking, how they handle the burnout?
I'll be honest, Cornelius, I don't know if I have the answer because I haven't experienced.
Okay.
Something about the rejuvenation process. Like this is my third group this week. I'll be seeing John Tellison and his brothers and friends tomorrow morning.
All right.
I'll have our church group Sunday. You know, at work, you know, I have multiple sessions, you know, with my shepherds, impromptu sessions all the time throughout the day. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what burnout means. It's something about being in this process, knowing that you're fulfilling it. No matter what time I go to sleep, I get up, and when I get started, the rejuvenation happens. You know, I can't explain that part. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that.
I think you just gave the answer, because you're saying you're in the process, that you're continually learning. And like Soup said earlier, you're a conduit. You're not trying to be the spring and you're going to run dry if you're trying to be the source of it all. But you're in the process. And so you're being rejuvenated by coming to the Lord every day and learning from others, being connected to others. So I think we heard the answer there.
And I'm not saying I don't need rest. You know, that's why them Mondays and Tuesdays are open. You know, and every now and then my guys know, especially on Thursday, them guys, John Chriswell on her, he low key on the Soup. He the HP custom. He the HP customer down low. All right. But man, them guys been walking with me on Thursdays for about four, maybe 5 years now. And there's times when we say, hey, we're gonna take a month off. Or when I'm not there, they meet. So it's not that I don't need rest, but we talked about burnout. You know, I don't, yeah. So yeah. And maybe we have to look at what we're doing when we start seeing burnout, you know, because we can be busy, but we got to evaluate that.
Now, I tell you what, back in probably 30 years ago, I was experiencing burnout when I was only running for evangelism. Okay. Now, you may look at that and go, man, what's he talking about? Well, if you ever spend time with me or been with me where you know I'm sharing the gospel, that ain't, you don't even have to question that if you're rolling with me. But now I'm sharing it more in the line of disciple making. And if you're going to make disciples, you can't make disciples alone. You got to have someone with you. If you don't have someone with you, you're not making disciples. You're just walking by yourself. So I partner with that person. So KEUSI, how many times have we been somewhere and I have shared the gospel alone when I'm with you?
Oh, I can't count. It happened.
Yeah, we're partnering on that. And now I know I'm doubling my productivity. I'm doubling the opportunity, and we're partnering, and it becomes fun. It becomes a part of conversation and not something I'm trying to muster up to try to do. And then, so when I got in disciple making, like KEUSI said, it revitalized, it rejuvenated, it refocused that not only am I having the opportunity to share the gospel, but I'm multiplying them opportunities. And that became very exciting and something hard to run after hard. So once again, you can have an evangelist and not have a disciple maker, but if someone is truly, truly discipled after the biblical model of Jesus, you will have an evangelist.
Yeah.
Who will reproduce more evangelists. Yeah.
That's good. That's real good.
You know, just as I observed you, KEUSI, and Soup, one thing I think that would be a inhibitor to burnout is the depth of the relationship that exists between you, the two of you, and others within your, I'll use the word network. Because, you know, one is your relationship with God, that's you get up and you're being challenged when you, and God's speaking to you as you prepare, but also, man, you got a group of guys you to the end. I said,
make that last statement again, Judge. You faded on us. It started to glitch on you.
That may have been God at work here, but at any rate, I just said that's a big deal. The fact that y'all have that depth of relationships with one another is big, is huge. And you're in a team together. You're all moving forward with the thing that you know that God's calling you to. And that's thrilling and fulfilling, and you're mutual encouragers to one another. Burnout, I think, in my experience, a lot of times comes from being alone and being separated and not getting the kind of encouragement that we need from others.
And yeah, that's good, Judge. And I think the major thing for me getting toasted was not seeing the results of all the work and effort and time you'd put into something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's something about see, most Western preaching settings, most of them, not all, so we want to be clear. It's impossible for the orator or the teacher or the preacher or the pastor to know who's learning in the setting. Think about it. You stand up, you give a 20, 30-minute sermon, a crowd of people are there. The context doesn't allow for one response, right? Or one comment openly. And you close, they leave, you leave. Some may come up and talk to you, so that was a great message. That don't confirm anything. You have no idea who learned what. That's breeding a potential for burnout. But in the context of disciple making and learning, in the atmosphere of open discussion and response and giving people a chance to communicate back and reteach, that's the rejuvenation of the teacher, I believe. I believe that's the difference, right? And I get a chance to experience that. And each one of these groups that I'm a part of, I'm with Soup on Wednesday, so he get a chance to experience it from everybody else. On Thursdays, I get a chance to experience it. On Fridays with you guys, I get it. Even on Sundays in our church group, I get a chance to experience that. So that's the rejuvenation process. And no matter how physically tired I am, I'm able to get up like clockwork, put in the amount of time, and be present to the point where those people think I probably had 10 hours of sleep, even if I haven't that particular day. And I often find myself saying, hey, you know what? I just need to make sure I get 80 in a day. And that's fine. It's a difference between rest and burnout. And again, we got to be mindful of our context. That's why we set it up this way. So, yeah.
Hey, I noticed since you've been teaching, you can hand stuff off to your guys. I've noticed that about Soup with I've seen you and Nelson, and I see that you ain't even got to teach every lesson. You got people on the same page that can carrying what you're trying to talk about. You can just hand it over to them. And I've noticed that in my own life since I've been on here. Just got to find that where it's getting across. Where if I don't, I can just say, hey, you go do it. And know it's going to be doing well. I think that's something that really speaks to me. I've seen the people that they know your guys. They could come on. I remember the first time you guys came in, you was teaching a lesson. They already knew the lesson you was teaching. And they haven't been on the group yet. So just seeing that helps me.
Yeah.
All right. And whose lessons, where do these lessons originate? Now, not the Sunday school answer, Jesus, we know that. But where do these lessons originate?
The church, a book of Acts.
No.
Oh, the Sermon on the Mount.
Think about what Tim said. When some of the guys come on, it's like they already know the lesson, right? Is that what he said?
Yes.
They've taught the lessons. KEUSI's men have taught the lessons I've taught him. Where they originate.
Herb.
That's right.
This man originated from you.
Now, Judge, where Judge?
Originated with Herb.
When's the last time you seen him, Judge?
3.5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Where is he now?
He is with Jesus.
And just yesterday, his lesson was being taught by one of my disciples.
Mm-hmm.
That's living on.
Mm-hmm.
You saying he didn't have a mule ministry, did he, Sue?
Not at all. Not at all.
There seems to be no greater joy. There seems to be no greater joy than to watch a disciple get a light bulb above their head and figure out a concept and apply it. I don't know a disciple maker needs anything more than to see that, and he just wants to see it again and again and again and again.
Yes, sir.
Because it all points us back. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, brother Dan.
I was just going to ask the question. I've met her a couple of times, but did you get a chance to see who poured into his life, or do you know that story?
Well, he saw the concept and he just began to devour materials because the way he has to do it is the way you, Judge, and some of you old guys are gonna have to do it. Continue to plow into the concept, hear where you are, and begin to live it out as sages in your own life after you see the concept. But it won't happen till you start truly running with it. And he just started running with it. And God just started giving him more light, more light. And I would say it's very unique with him is because, number one, Brother Herb had a tenacious appetite for the scriptures, for the word, and he had a boldness to stand on what he knew. Now, in Memphis, Tennessee, in the early 70s, Southern Baptist, Brother Herb was the first one to partner and plant African American Southern Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, what do you think he had to go through from the other brethren to do that in Memphis, Tennessee in the 70s? Yeah. Now, remember, the 70s is just one decade. It's 10 years a decade.
Yep.
It was just a decade from when they killed King down here. So you got all kind of crap going on. Man, I had friends and youth minister friends. I'll tell you a story. Some kids stole some stuff in a choir. African-American kids from a apartment complex across from one of the churches stole some stuff out of the choir stand. The ladies' purses. They got caught. And my friend who went to this church, the pastor, and it was kind of dying out. He's white. This is a white church. They went to the judge. My pastor friend went to the judge and said, hey, won't you sentence these kids to our church? And the juvenile judge says, all right, I'm good with that. If the mama's good with it, so she was good with it. And those 4 kids became a vital part of that church. People just loved on them. A youth minister friend of mine at that church said, we're gonna have outreach. So he gave flyers to the kids at the church, and the church is expecting these kids just to give the flyers to other white kids. Now, this is in a community where in the 60s, they said, no blacks will ever live in this community. No blacks will ever live in this community. All right. These 4 kids that had been sentenced to the church, or that's the way I said, but the judge allowed them to be a part of the church to keep from going to juvenile court and being locked down. Mm-hmm. They took that flyer across the street 100 yards or less to a complex that was full of African Americans right in the front door of this church. And that night, 35 African Americans showed up in their service. They wasn't ready. They was not ready. They went home, they washed their hands in bleach after they shook hands. These are churches that would drain the baptistry after they baptized somebody of color, refill it up to baptize the other people, their culture. And my youth minister friend got death threats. Okay, got death threats. And Brother Herb went in there, and I mean, he got all over them folks. And I was in there with him, and I'm looking for the door, like, which one we're gonna head out of when you get through with this. But you talking about a man bold, and you talking about a man in a time when everybody would say, don't do nothing like this. But out of that one African-American church that he helped plant, and they baptized at his church, and he stood with them. There were probably 17 churches that grew out of that one church because of one man being able to make a bold stand. That's how he was. That's why I could roll with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. And as you think about Brother Herb, you got to ask yourself, because see what'll happen. Let me warn us young men. We'll hear that and we'll immediately say, well, he said Brother Herb did it. He didn't need a discipler, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna study the concept and be my own discipler, right? So you gotta watch it. And you got to ask yourself, is there somebody available to me that's in the process, knows the process, mastered the process, that I can study under, and has a lot more wisdom than I do, right? See, Brother Herb was in a context, from what I understand and hear and listen to the stories, there was no one around, even desirably trying to be a part of this process for him. But he was an anomaly because, like Soup said, I don't even know if we can explain his appetite and his tenaciousness in the way he devoured and studied scriptures. I don't even know if it's explainable. I'll give you another story. We love telling stories. You see where I get it from. So Brother Herb passed away. And so we stay in touch with Miss Judy. With her last month, Sue. And so I said, hey, man, I remember being in Brother Herb's library in his office. I said, man, he got a ton of books. So I hit up Miss Judy and said, hey, you know, I talked with Sue before. I said, hey, I know Brother Herb would want some of his men to have some of his books. When can I come over? So she tell me, and Zena and I said, hey, baby, we got to go. We got to go get some of these books before they gone. And I pull up, guess who car in the driveway coming out with books they can't even carry? Soup and Miss Linda. So I walked to the door and helped them put their books in the car. And I said, hey, Soup, how you know which ones to get? He said, man, he lit up. He said, look for the bulges. Look for the Brother Herb. He writes notes in everybody's books. He said, look for the bulges. So I went in and I just found a bunch of bulges and topics I wanted. And I started to stuff my box full, you know, so yeah. But if you go into his library, it's upstairs in his house. Maybe about, what would you say, 400 or 500, between 400 and 600 square feet too?
Yeah. Now more than that.
More than that. Yeah. So probably, yeah, but larger than that. And so he has his office immediately to the right. He got small bookshelves around it, books all over his office desk. And then around the walls, there's bookshelves stacked, you know, taller than me. So I'm 6'3", so the bookshelves stacked taller than me. All of them full, books on top of the shelves. You go all the way around the wall, same way, and he has them organized, text, topic, and all, right? And so I said, Miss Judy, I asked Brother Herb, did Brother Herb read all these books? You know? And she says, if he has a book on his shelf, if he did not read that book, he got some kind of notes out of it. So if it didn't have a bulge, what I started to find, because it was certain books I wanted. And when I read through, I would see where he highlighted and underlined, right? And so he physically touched and mostly read all of those books in his library, right? And again, I can't really vividly describe. And then in his drawers, countless of lessons and teachings. So if you go on Brother Herb's website, he has a vault of teachings, and Miss Judy updated that. You'll see all of his teachings. But that still doesn't calculate and explain all the ones that didn't make it to the digital version copy. So Brother Herb, in my context, I say he was a beast. You know, he was an animal that's very rare. I don't know another man like that personally, and I'm not saying anything else about anybody else. I just don't know one. So yeah. So warning for us youngsters to go out and try to say, I don't need a disciple maker, you know. So yeah. Hopefully that helps. A minute before the hour, bro, Wayne.
Yeah.
How are we?
I think
ready?
Okay,
I think
we
that was
got
a
through
great
number
example
3.
of the prototype, right? We didn't intend to go there, but we're on prototype. And that was a great story of the prototype that's responsible for Soup's existence being here. And if it wasn't for that prototype, I wouldn't be here. So hey, it was a good illustration.
Boy, that's really true. Yeah, that's point
Yes.
number 3 just coming to life right there for sure. Yeah.
Well, if you want us to teach this at some point, we got to get to number 4 and 5 and 6, because on 4 I ain't got much, and we need to put some more meat in number 4.
But actually, he can go ahead and sign 1 and 2 basically, because we've been through that enough.
And that's the key. Go ahead, Sue.
And whoever now see, the wise guy would jump on one of them, and you're gonna have a whole lot more time to get it ready than if you got 4, 5, and 6.
All you gotta do is say, I got number 1, I got number 2, and you put the pressure on everybody else.
Okay, look like we got a 1 up there.
It's got a 1.
Okay. All right. We got another saying. I'm learning from the youngsters. I'm around them every day. So we got 1 and 2.
How many we doing? How many we assigning 2 at this point?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
1. Yeah, we can.
You better jump on number 3 if you want it.
Why, has somebody already got number 2?
You
But
take
Fred do.
Judge.
Fred, you got 2.
Fred.
Judge, you take 2. You take 2.
No, I wasn't trying to volunteer. I was just trying to find out where we were.
You got
Sound like you got volunteered.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm man, if you guys volunteering, go ahead, get after it.
No, I said sound like somebody volunteered you.
Oh, does that count?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll do. Is it which one, Fred? You got? You got 2. I got. Okay, I'm 3.
No, you got 2.
Oh, I got 2.
You
I'll
2.
off the hook, Wayne, and volunteer for 2.
Okay, I'm 2. Jeff's 1. Fred's 3.
Okay, Ross, say that again, Ross.
I said I was going to let Wayne off the hook, and I would take 2.
Deal.
That doesn't count, Judge. That doesn't count.
That count.
Bro Wayne, I knew you didn't hear him.
In his favor.
I knew you didn't hear him, bro Wayne. That's why I wanted him to repeat it.
Yeah.
I got it.
You may be seated, Brother Fred.
But see, Judge, he getting you back for trying to send him to Somalia. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah. He didn't want none of that, did he? I got Somalia confused with Ethiopia, and he didn't want to go to Somalia. Okay. So 1, 2, and 3 is done. So, or is that we're gonna stop? We're gonna hold it there, and until we finish out the teaching, or what we're gonna do? Call it.
You know, we talked about maybe two sessions ago of just a learning technique. This is what I was gonna comment to Brother Jeff. You mentioned about not having a lot on number 4. We got to hurry up and get to number 4. Well, that's not necessarily the best way to learn the entire lesson. Maybe just learning 1, circling through. Because once you hear somebody else reteach it, watch what it does for your ability to learn the text, your confidence. So we good either way. So Judge, you were asking, we'll let the volunteers or the voluntold say when they're ready. If they're not ready next week, then I will continue with our review and digging deep. But if one of our volunteers are ready, we'll just let them take care of one. So yeah.
Jeff Harper will be ready. I know. He's ready now. Okay.
But we're in your hands. Yeah. You handle the all rise, so we can walk out. We can't get up until
All right.
You gotta say that, right?
So you're tendering back to me.
All
Is that
right.
what you're doing?
I am.
All right. I sure wish Fletch was here because he could do a good job of closing this baby out. But I just bring the gavel down. Okay.
Right.
Gavel. We done.
See you guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
y'all.
All right. Love you guys.
Bless y'all. Love y'all, man.
All right.
We'll see y'all.